thinks of racism and what it means to be anti-racist, I think we need to start off with definitions to really clarify that. So we've clarified what decoloniality means, but when we think about racism, I think most people will focus on the interpersonal aspect of racism, looking at prejudices and discriminatory behaviors where one group makes assumptions about the abilities, motives, and intents of another group based on their race. So very often people might think of texts as being racist based on the sort of representations that exist within that text. And I think that is quite limiting, because we need to look at the broader picture and the broader, the different ways that racism works. It's not just about racist hate crime or racist discrimination. So think to be effective in our anti-racism, we also need to consider internalized racism. So when members of stigmatized groups are bombarded with negative messages about their own abilities and intrinsic worth, they may internalize those negative messages. So that's the example we looked at earlier with Black people wishing that their skin was white, because all the messages they've been getting from the text they read, from the messages they see in media and society, tell them that actually Black skin is not valuable, it's not a symbol of worth. So we really need to be careful when looking at internalized racism, and also the impact it has on white peoples. It's very easy to start internalizing superiority whenever you see a different skin tone. So it's applicable to white peoples as well. We also need to look at institutional racism, so the collective failure of an organization to provide an appropriate and professional service to people because of their color, culture, or ethnic origin. So we need to think about the curriculum. Are we providing an appropriate service for the different pupils in the school, or is it just valuing or prioritizing the needs of white learners, white pupils? And finally, cultural racism, which I think is very closely linked to coloniality of knowledge. So it's holding white Western culture as normative and the undervaluing of any non-white and non-Western cultural norms, beliefs, and lifestyles. So when we do anti-racist work, it's really important to start from a critical understanding of racism, to then unpack that and to counter the racism that already exists. So starting from a place that places racism is actually quite common in society, not something that's abnormal and unusual, really helps you think more critically about your classroom practice and what you can do to make sure that your practice is anti-racist.